3. The D claws have no purpose, but are taken as a marker for splitting to the hawk across the taut back of the thigh and within a few inches of the cod. Then the hide must be split from the middle of the belly without disturbing the abdomen's shell, or the pliant and thin fell membrane. Each name was given by Adam in the garden during the sultry, buzzing afternoons after the world was made whole. They warned me that the blood spots must be wiped and wiped away, then wiped again with water and a warm, soft cloth. The person who does this task must have a tender kind of attention and must make sure no leaves or dust fall into the tin tub where the water swirls. The caul fat must be taken out with care. Next, someone strong should loosen the pelvis and the windpipe, then saw and split them each, leaving them exposed. What meaning crucifixion has depends on display and disappearance. For when is the material ever more resistant than when it is contradicted? The animal had lolled and slept and grazed in its given hours, then gone to the killing floor where time was rent by pain. Look to the heavens, they said. Count the stars. And so allayed the terror of the cry. Behind the stone, the tomb yawned, empty. 4. Later, the old ones told me how to build the tripod from timbers and how to stretch the gas pipe between the tendons and the shank bones. Broom handle sticks are tied to the rope ends, then worked, lodged as levers to raise and spread the legs. One explained how skinning must proceed with the hoisting. Another told how to sever and withdraw the stiffening tail. Taking turns, they went into the beating of the hide and working loose of the rectum, the severing in the final stages of the glossy violet liver. Wash the liver and hang it to cool slowly. Wash the heart. Hang it by the small end too. Keep the fat clustered against the tongue and hang it up to drain and cool and dry. Save the rest of the fat for soap and tallow. Wash the stomach until it's perfectly clean and the inner surface webbed with white. When the carcass has been split down the center of the backbone, the two halves should be pinned with a smooth muslin shroud. They must stay this way until morning, so that the living heat will disperse and the fresh cuts can be cold and cleanly made. Out of one being of vastness, out of one task a division of labor, out of one shot the myriad silence, winter's gory fruit. 5. Now let us go back to the stunning, to the meeting of a human and animal mind. Let us go back and begin again, where the function overwhelms all hesitation and seems like an act of nature. But they were tired and had no time for me. The immense weight of memory dragged up and brought back into the present was, too, like a great beast, beached and spoiled. I finally grasped what had happened, how the real could not be evoked except in a spell of longing for the past or the mind that would be, after all, another occasion for suffering. There would be no more instruction, no more, in the end, hand guiding the hand. And now, via John Cage, we're going to go back for a moment to Henry Thoreau and end with a lecture on the weather. And then I'll read the weather after that. When in 1975, Richard Coulter of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation offered me a commission to write a piece of music to celebrate the American bicentennial, I automatically accepted because the invitation came from outside the United States. He suggested that I base it on texts of Benjamin Franklin. I got a copy of Poor Richard's Almanac, but shortly put it aside, returning to the writings of Thoreau, the essay on civil disobedience, the journal, and Walden. Henry Thoreau lived in Concord, Massachusetts. For 2 years, he lived alone in the woods 2 miles from town by the side of Walden Pond. He built his home and grew his food, and each Sunday walked back to Concord to have dinner with his mother and father and other relatives or friends. He is the inventor of the pencil. He was the first person to put a piece of lead down the center of a piece of wood. He wrote many books, including a journal of 14 volumes. His essay on civil disobedience inspired Gandhi in his work of changing India, and Martin Luther King Jr. in his use of nonviolence as a means of revolution. No greater American has lived than Thoreau. Emerson called him a speaker and actor of the truth. Other great men have vision. Thoreau had none. Each day, his eyes and ears were open and empty to see and hear the world he lived in. His music, he said, is continuous. Only listening is intermittent. He did have a question. Is life worth living? Walden is his detailed and affirmative reply. And then Cage starts. The first thing I thought of doing in relation to this work was to find an anthology of American aspirational thought and subject it to chance operations. I thought the resultant complex would help to change our present intellectual climate. I called up Dover and asked whether they published such an anthology. They didn't. I called a part of Columbia University concerned with American history and asked about aspirational thought. They knew nothing about it. I called the information desk of the New York Public Library at 42nd Street. The man who answered said, "You may think I'm not serious, but I am. If you're interested in aspiration, go to the Children's Library on 52nd Street." I did. I found that anthologies for children are written by adults. They are what adults think are good for children. The thickest one was edited by Commager, Documents of American History. It is a collection of legal judgments, presidential reports, congressional speeches. I began to realize that what is called balance between the branches of our government is not balance at all. All the branches of our government are occupied by lawyers. Of all professions, the law is the least concerned with aspiration. It is concerned with precedent, not with discovery, with what was witnessed at one time in one place, and not with vision and intuition. When the law is corrupt, it is corrupt because it concentrates its energy on protecting the rich from the poor. Justice is out of the question. That is why not only aspiration, but intelligence, as in the work of Buckminster Fuller, and conscience, as the thought of Thoreau, are missing in our leadership. Our leaders are concerned with the energy crises. They assure us they will find new sources of oil. Not only will the Earth's reservoir of fossil fuels soon be exhausted, their continued use continues the ruin of our environment. Our leaders promise they will solve the unemployment problem. They will give everyone a job. It would be more in the spirit of Yankee ingenuity, more American, to find a way to get all that work done that needs to be done without anyone's lifting a finger. Our leaders are concerned with inflation and insufficient cash. Money, however, is credit, and credit is confidence. We have lost confidence in one another. We could regain it again tomorrow simply by changing our minds. Therefore, even though the occasion for this piece is the bicentennial of the USA, I have chosen to work again with the writings of Henry David Thoreau. Those excerpts which are used were not selected to stress any particular points, but were obtained by means of I-Ching chance operations from Walden, from the journal, and from the essay on civil disobedience. Thoreau lived not 200 years ago, but for 44 years, only beginning 159 years ago. In 1968, I wrote as follows, quote, "Reading Thoreau's journal, I discover any idea I've ever had worth its salt," unquote. In 1862, Emerson wrote, quote, "No truer American existed than Thoreau. If he brought you yesterday a new proposition, he would bring you today another not less revolutionary," unquote. In 1929, Gandhi wrote that he had found the essay on civil disobedience so convincing and truthful that as a young man in South Africa, preparing to devote his life to the liberation of India,